What is going on, everybody? This is another episode of Coordinated Chaos. On this week's episode, we will be recapping what happened in Week 16 of the NFL football season. Then we're going to get into the Christmas Day football slate. We're going to preview those two games, and that'll pretty much be it. This is a special edition Christmas edition of the Coordinated Chaos podcast. I'm pretty tired. This is actually Christmas Eve, pretty late at night, so I'm getting this out. Hopefully you guys can catch up in the morning and go ahead and get the listen in before the games begin, but doing this kind of late night, but we'll see how this goes. All right, let's go hop into what happened in Thursday Night Football of last week. Broncos versus Chargers, obviously an AFC West division rivalry game with some playoff seeding implications and things of that nature. Both of these teams are vying for a wild card spot in the AFC playoff picture. And it was a really fun game, actually. We've had some stinkers on Thursday Night Football. We've had some really fun games on Thursday Night Football. This was on the higher end, the higher tier of fun football games to watch. There was a lot of scoring in this game. Both quarterbacks were playing pretty good ball. Bo Nix playing pretty good ball for the Broncos, and Sean Payton. He's got that team playing pretty well right now. The defense is a problem for a lot of opposing quarterbacks when it comes to what the Broncos can throw at you. Vance Joseph, he does a lot of blitzing and exotic blitz packages, as well as the fact that Pat Surtain is just one of the better cornerbacks in all of football. Unfortunately, Riley Moss, their other bookend cornerback, has been out for a couple of weeks. He's been a little bit injured, but when both those guys are healthy, that defense is a problem. People do not want to face them at all, so they're going to be a pain in the rear for anybody in the playoffs if they are able to hold on to one of their last wild card seeds. And then the Chargers, obviously, they win this game. Justin Herbert slings the rock around the field. He gets everybody involved. Ladd McConkey, Joshua Palmer, Quentin Johnston. And then, obviously, Gus Edwards has a huge game in this game. Broke off a couple big runs, some stuff that we haven't seen from him in a few years, actually. So that was good to see in general. But Chargers defense stepped up at the end, and basically just Justin Herbert got the job done. Big win for the Chargers, obviously. Like I said, both teams vying for one of those last spots in the wild card playoff spots in the AFC. So good game there, obviously. Thursday Night Football, like I said, can't always count on a good game, but you got one there this week. Chiefs versus Texans, this was the first game of the Saturday day slate. This one was basically how I thought it would go, more or less. I thought the Chiefs would win the game. Didn't think it was going to be pretty. It wasn't very pretty. They've been obviously winning ugly all season long, essentially. But the Texans, this is just what I've come to expect with the Texans at this point. It's going to be a whole lot of just C.J. Stroud bailing people out on third and longs. There's a whole lot of first and second down runs from Bobby Sloak in that offense. I just do not enjoy the way he's calling plays right now. I don't enjoy the fact that obviously the Houston Texans offensive line has been very inconsistent, very just bad in general, really. And I think there's a whole lot of problems with communication issues between the offensive line and C.J. Stroud right now. I think they're having very similar issues to what we were dealing with last year with Jalen Hurts in the offensive line. What was happening last year with Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offensive line was they were not giving Jalen Hurts the opportunity to call his own protections, call out the blitzes and where they're coming from and things of that nature. It was all up to Jason Kelce, and obviously Jason Kelce is a very smart center, probably one of the smartest ones we've ever had, one of the most dominant centers in all of football. But there could be certain things when communicating, where blitzes are coming from, that can get lost in translation between a center whenever he's the one calling the protections over the quarterback, because then the quarterback could not get a certain read here or there and be like, I don't really know where I'm hot right now, because obviously the center is the one communicating everything to him as well as the rest of the offensive line. So I think that's the same thing that's happening to C.J. Stroud and the offensive line for the Houston Texans right now, and I think that going into next year, I think they need to make an effort to say, look, CJ, we need you. We're going to put a little bit more on your plate here. I think you can handle it. I think he can handle it personally. I think he's a really good player, and I think he's smart. So I think if they were to put that on his plate, he would take it in stride, and he would do a really good job of doing his own protections. And I think that would go a long way of shoring up some of the communication issues and some of the blitz packages that people send at him will not hurt them as much going forward. So I think that's the biggest thing about the Texans right now, more than anything. The Texans defense flies around. Derek Stingley Jr. is ridiculous. He's an incredible player. So I think this just has more to do with the offense and the play calling and, like I said, the offensive line issues. But once again, Tank Dell does go down in this game, so you're out another one of your star receivers. You were already without Stephon Diggs with a torn ACL. Nico Collins had been out multiple games with a hamstring injury. He's obviously back now, but he's the last guy standing in that wide receiver room. When you started the season off with three really just superstar level players, in that wide receiving core. Now you're looking at one. Very unfortunate. I will say, if you're playing fantasy still, if you still happen to be in the playoffs, you need a tight end to play this week. Dalton Schultz is a pretty solid play. Obviously, he's going to be playing Wednesday on Christmas tomorrow. So it's going to be tough to, say, do I really want to risk somebody right this second? Because obviously you got more games coming down the line this weekend. So it's going to be a tough decision for you in that regard. But Dalton Schultz should get the uptick in production, considering all the weapons are essentially gone for C.J. Stroud. So there's that. But yeah, Chiefs get a big W. I expected them to win the game. They just don't lose these type of games. And they just keep chugging along, really. Next game, Ravens versus Steelers. This was the second game of the Saturday day slate. This one, this was I think a narrative buster for Lamar Jackson. This one was more of he heard all of the Lamar and the Ravens, and it's always Lamar and the Ravens can't beat the Steelers. And Lamar has almost never played them either healthy or with all of his weapons. And there's always been something in the back of the background of these games that it didn't always go in Lamar's favor. And I think in this game he was I've got everything at my disposal. I'm going to go out there and let it rip. And he absolutely lit them up and just had an incredible game on Saturday against the Steelers. Steelers once again were without George Pickens. He is a undoubted huge part of that offense. He is the thing that's making that offense explosive and kind of run when it comes to the passing offense for the Steelers. It just hasn't looked as good without him in the lineup. Obviously, they just don't have as much explosion out there. He just garners so much attention from a defense. So, Steelers lose. Obviously, Ravens get another W. And this is going to come down to the wire between the Ravens and the Steelers for the AFC North title. So, I'm looking forward to the end of the season and these last two games on the schedules. Next game, Falcons versus Giants. The only reason I'm really even saying anything about this was just the fact that Michael Penix Jr. plays in this game, comes out. He looks like a pro. I mean, that's the first thing you think of when you watch the film is just the ball's getting out quick. He's got zip on the ball. He's making good decisions out there. Can't really say much else about it. The Falcons look like a pretty well-oiled machine when it comes to just operating the offense when he's out there. So I like what I've seen so far. Falcons get a huge win there. Obviously, they want to continue to win to just keep the Tampa Bay Buccaneers away from winning the NFC South. So they obviously want to get that 4th seed in the NFC and get a home game at the very least. So big game for the Falcons there. Next game, Eagles versus Commanders. This was a crazy game in general. Jalen Hurts' first quarter gets knocked out with a concussion from Frankie Louvu. He comes over from the side, kind of hits his head into the turf more or less. Wild game in general after the fact. Kenny Pickett comes in and actually starts to play pretty good for a guy coming cold off the bench. I will say he missed some throws at the end of this game that could have really turned the tide of the game for the most part, but also at the very end of this game, Devontae Smith drops a pass that would have essentially got the Eagles a first down to essentially just run out the rest of the clock in the football game after they were able to go down there and get into field goal range and kick a field goal. All the time would have basically expired, and the Eagles would have won that game. But you can't take away what Jaden Daniels was able to do against the Eagles, number one defense in all of football. So he goes for 5 touchdowns in this game, which is just very impressive for a rookie quarterback, obviously, to do that to a Vic Fangio defense who's been playing good defense pretty much all season, outside of the first 4 weeks of the season, more or less. So this was a huge game for the Commanders to get just to more or less boost their confidence. I mean, for me as an Eagles fan, I'm not worried about it. It looks like the Eagles and Commanders are on a collision course to play each other the first game of the playoffs. It'll be in Philadelphia, as the Eagles are more or less going to be the 2 seed. Commanders will probably be the 7, so they will match up in round 1. I feel good if it's a healthy Jalen Hurts, because it looked like on Sunday before Hurts got hurt, it looked like it was on their way to a dominating victory. The Eagles, I should say, because it was 14-0 very quickly in that game, and that was just basically on the back of Hurts making plays with his legs and things of that nature. That's what got him hurt, unfortunately, but he was making plays out there, and Saquon was getting things going. He obviously ripped off 2 big-time touchdowns again, so he's been incredible for the Eagles all season long. The defense, I'm not that worried about. In a regular game script where you have Jalen Hurts in there, the defenses have put in some of those positions that they normally would be. They'd be up by more because of what Jalen Hurts is able to do outside of what Kenny Pickett can do, because Kenny's just not as good, clearly, at football. That's why he's the backup, more or less. So, and he wasn't very good when he was the starter for the Steelers either, to be completely honest with you. I personally was a fan of the trade for Kenny Pickett, just because, look, experienced starter. But, man, after seeing what he did in the preseason and in training camp, I was like, man, I don't know if he's even better than Tanner McKee, who was our third-string third-string quarterback at this point. So it is what it is. I kind of want to see what Tanner McKee has. If for some reason Jalen Hurts can't go this week, obviously concussions up in the air like that, things like that happen, and it's not always just the second week that the player can come back. But Eagles lose, Commanders get a big W there to kind of boost their confidence there. They're not really going to move in seeding a whole lot, neither is the Eagles, so it is what it is. The Eagles are still, as long as they don't completely collapse once again, they'll win the NFC East, and they'll go into the playoffs as the 2 seed. So next game, Vikings versus Seahawks. Vikings get a big W here. They're 13-2, tied with the Detroit Lions, who also got a win on Sunday as well, and the Vikings look good, man. Sam Darnold's still slinging it around out there. Vikings defense looks as good as it's looked all season, just as creative. Brian Flores is doing a really good job with that unit. They're getting contributions from all kinds of different players right now, even guys like Jordan Addison, who wasn't really playing that well earlier on in the season. He was a little bit banged up in the season. Comes back, looks great so far. Aaron Jones playing pretty decent in that offense right now, so like I said, Sam Darnold playing good ball, Vikings playing good ball. It's going to come down to that last game against the Lions in Week 18. It's going to be really fun to see who wins that NFC North and eventually the 1 seed. As an Eagles fan, I'm really not super scared of either of these teams right this second. I think the Eagles can take advantage of the Vikings defense because of that blitz heaviness, because you can kind of run yourself out of them being a little blitz heavy and the creativity there. And then the Lions are just so banged up on the defensive side of the ball right now. And yes, their offense is crazy explosive. They score tons of points. But that just with the Eagles defense being number 1 in the league doesn't scare me that much either. But either one of these teams being the 1 seed is a scary sight for most teams, I will say, especially going into a Detroit or Minnesota right now with the fan bases they have. It's going to be incredibly loud, and your communication better be on point, or else, some false starts can happen. You get all these types of penalties can happen in those types of games. So it's going to be really fun going down the wire for the NFC North, of course. So next game, Bills versus Patriots. The Bills narrowly escaped the Patriots. It was in Orchard Park, New York, so it was at home for the Bills. The Bills I feel like just couldn't get up for this game. They have 3 really rough games going down the stretch when it comes to just competitiveness and trying to be competitive because of just the records of these 3 teams going forward, or the 2 teams technically. There's 3 games left. New England, Jets, and then New England again in Week 18 for the Bills. And I just think they got off to a slow start here, obviously. Josh Allen didn't play that great. The defense let up a few plays here and there early on in the game. And really the thing that turned the tide of this game wasn't really anything offensively that Josh Allen or the offense did. It was more or less just Josh Allen then were clawing back into the game at this point in the time. But then Drake May throws a backwards pass essentially to Ramondre Stevenson close to the goal line, and it pops out of his hand and flies up in the air. Fumble, obviously. and the Bills jump on it for a touchdown, and really they didn't look back after that. So it's kind of a fluky game in general for the Bills to even win after getting off to a really slow start. But I knew at some point, they'd kind of get going a little bit on offense, and Josh Allen would pull some stuff out of his rear to get the job done, which they more or less did. So they move on. Obviously, it's going to be tough sledding for them the last two games, just trying to really be competitive because of the stakes of what's going on there. But they want that 1 seed. They got to continue to win just in case the Chiefs were to slip up. So Bills get a win. Cowboys versus Buccaneers. This was a big one for, like I was saying earlier, with the Falcons. NFC South. Buccaneers lose in this one. It was a really fluky game, really wild circumstances going on in this game. There was crazy fumbles. There was just a lot of wildness. But the one thing that kind of just stood out to me in this one was the fact that the Buccaneers, obviously on offense, kind of scare me, even as an Eagles fan, that Baker Mayfield, that offense, it can be explosive. He's a wild card. He likes to rip it. He doesn't care who's on the other side of the field, obviously. And he's going to let it rip. And Mike Evans is just an incredible player. Jalen McMillan is stepping up for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense as well. You got the stable of Bucky Irving and Rachaad White. I think that's a pretty solid, offense in general right now, even though they're missing Chris Godwin quite a bit. But what I will say is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense can be had, obviously. If you let Cooper Rush and the Cowboys offense kind of tear you up in prime time, that's just not a good look going into the playoffs. So obviously they're still trying to win the NFC South, because if they don't, they're just not making it into the playoffs, considering all the other good teams in the NFC right now. So they want to win, but they're going to have to win out essentially and just hope the Falcons falter. So that pretty much wraps it up for the recap of Week 16. Let's go right into Christmas football preview. Chiefs and the Steelers. Chiefs are 2.5-point favorites right now in Pittsburgh, actually. In this game, I'm not gonna dive super deep into this. I will say I like the Chiefs to win this game money line. I do not like messing with the points here. They win with narrow margins. Obviously, this is just a field goal here, but crazy stuff happens. And I will say that the Steelers do get George Pickens back. That's going to be huge for them. But I still like the Chiefs just win these gritty, dirty games. And I know Mike Tomlin loves those type of football games as well. But something about it, I just feel like the Chiefs just keep winning these games, and they just continue to find a way to do it. Marquise Brown actually being back in the offense is actually a bigger deal than I think people anticipated. So I like him to kind of be a bigger, more explosive element in that offense for the Chiefs moving forward as well. Next game, Ravens -5.5 versus the Texans in Houston. This game, I will gladly bet the Ravens -5.5. I think the Texans are on a downturn. I think it's stock down for the Texans right now in general, especially with all the injuries they've incurred. So I think the Ravens are looking to get hot going into the playoffs. Obviously, they get a big win over their division rival last week in the Steelers, so they got a little bit of momentum going forward. They want to steal that division title from the Steelers currently, and so I think this is going to go a long ways to doing that. And I think Lamar has another fantastic day. I think Derrick Henry goes crazy. I would even say a Derrick Henry anytime touchdown is a good bet. I wouldn't doubt that a Joe Mixon anytime touchdown is a good bet as well. So, but I like the Ravens to honestly more or less blow out the Texans in this game. But yeah, that's pretty much what I'm feeling for the Christmas Day football slate. I appreciate everybody listening and watching, taking your time out of potentially Christmas to watch this, or just your Christmas kind of vacation, as everybody's starting to go back to work in a few days here. But like I said, appreciate everybody listening and tuning in, and please follow in all the socials, YouTube, TikTok. Watch out for the bets of the week entering into the last part of the weekend here. Probably going to have to get that out on Friday night because of the Saturday slate, but we'll see how it goes and which games I pick. Depending on the games, obviously, we'll see when I put that out. But, yeah, keep in tune with that, and I will talk to you next week. Peace.